All right, I don't think this is going to happen, but what if Georgia Auburn went away as a yearly series? And I don't think that's going to happen. When you look at the century long rivalry between these two schools, it's just something that I just don't think there's any way that that's ever going to happen. However, if the SEC does away with divisions and they go to a 7-1 model in the near future, then Auburn, Georgia would go away. And I am very skeptical, as I've said in the past, that that would happen. But what would that look like? Would the two schools say, "Oh well, it's so important to us, we have to play"? I don't see that happening. They're not just going to. It's going to have to be within the framework of the SEC. So I, I don't. You know, this game is so important to Georgia, at least. Let me tell a story real quick. So in 2011, the announcements made that Texas A&M and Missouri are coming into the league. So Georgia, Ole Miss, there were a couple other schools that like Ole Miss went to Alabama in back-to-back seasons. Georgia went to Auburn in back-to-back seasons to balance things out, and so forth. Georgia was so eager to play that game to continue history that they were willing to play a back-to-back game at Auburn in 2013. And I can tell you right now that that still comes up a lot. For Georgia fans, it comes up inside of Butts Mirror. There's all sorts of stuff that riles some people the wrong way. To me, you know, you're in a group. You are part of a, I call it a cartel, but you are part of a group. And if you're going to be in the group, you got to do what's best for the group. And for Georgia to play that game in 13 at Auburn, you know, that's probably why Auburn went on to win the SEC that season and play for the national championship, because with as tight as that game was and the miracle that happened at the end of that game, that's probably not happening at Georgia. Like in Athens, I don't think that would happen inside Athens. But what do I know? In terms of these two schools playing outside of the structure of the league, that just doesn't happen very much, generally speaking. It's never happened in football that I'm aware of in modern times. I think it happened a couple times in the 60s or 50s in terms of other schools in Georgia. The only time I can think of lately where, this sort of thing has happened, like a basketball team playing or baseball, is that baseball played Alabama in a non-SEC series at Coolray Field in Gwinnett County, like for a year or two. That was not a normal instance. And with baseball having so many games, 50 something games, I don't think it matters. I mean, Georgia, I think there could become some debate about the elephant in the room, which is not Alabama, it's Georgia Tech. Like, which rivalry is more important? Is it Tech or Auburn? Right? I mean, I, I, I think that's a good question. To be honest, I think I think it depends on who you are, where you live, how you grew up, and so forth. I mean, hey, listen, make sure you're taking advantage of DoorDash. $20 value using the code Dawg Post Summer at checkout. Limited time offer, term supply. You got to download the DoorDash app. This is for your first meal with our friends from DoorDash. Y'all know they got a ton of selection. So use the code Dawg Post Summer. $20. You're going to get 50% off. No delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store. That's Dawg Post Summer, 50% off your first value. DoorDash order, limited time offer, and terms apply. Make sure you're taking advantage of that, y'all. I don't know which game. I mean, the answer is Auburn is more important. I don't know, though. When you think about the history of Tech and Georgia and the history of Georgia, Auburn. See, here's the thing. Georgia and the Gators, that's number one. It just is. If you're going to act like it's not, come on. What are we talking about? Are we being serious? Because it doesn't seem like it. If we're going to say that Auburn's a bigger rival than Georgia, it might be a bigger rival for you, but it's not a bigger rivalry than Georgia, okay? Georgia, Florida. And Tech certainly is not. Tech, Auburn, Tech or Auburn, those two actually used to be rivals themselves. I don't know. I think most Georgia fans would say Auburn, but I'm not sure that inside of Buzzsmere that would really be true. I mean, those two schools, they mean a lot for Georgia. They mean a lot to the institution. You aren't Georgia without playing football against Tech and Auburn. You're not Georgia anymore, and I think that's the part to me that the SEC is going to consider, along with Tennessee, Alabama, and frankly, Texas A&M. I mean, this is not. Look, it's going to be 9 games. It just is. I don't know when it's going to be 9 games. My suspicion is going to be 9 games in 24. And I reserve the right to be wrong, but I mean, there's just too many sort of, if you want to call them secondary rivalries. When you start talking about, Georgia, Auburn, Tennessee, Alabama, LSU, Alabama. Texas is number 1 is Oklahoma. So Texas A&M, Texas. That game doesn't happen if you're chopping off Georgia, Auburn. And then there's just so many games. Like, well, for instance, you're going to chop off Tennessee, Kentucky? Because those people are going to freak out if you lose that game. South Carolina will be in a full-blown panic losing Georgia. Full-blown. Then who would they play? Who would get them? That is their conference game. That is their conference rivalry for South Carolina. That game matters a lot to them. That game is in serious jeopardy, but not like Georgia Auburn. I mean, well, of course they all are. If you're going 7-1, and this is what they're talking about inside. It's okay. So, having been a person that served on a board of trustees at a school, these discussions. We switched conferences, which I was all for, let me tell you. I was totally for it. And, these are the type of things that come up. Do we want to be associated with these schools? Do we want to play these schools? I mean, what's the situation with travel? All these things. And when you're in those rooms, some people don't get it. Now, everybody in the SEC should get it. Okay, everybody understands. What may be challenging is if you are Mississippi State, and you already play your rival. And you're Ole Miss. You already play your rival. Oh, they got that thing with LSU. You lose Ole Miss, LSU too in that scenario. Every single year. Does Mississippi State really care? They're probably like, hey man, I don't want to eat another loss. If you're Vanderbilt, do you really care? You need 8 votes here. Excuse me. You need 8 votes here. Can you get to 8? Because 7's not going to do it. Georgia, Auburn are going to be a yeah. I think Alabama and Tennessee are going to be a yeah too, no matter what Nick Saban says. That's 4 already. You need 4 other schools. Texas can't vote. A&M can. That's 5, right? Would LSU go for this? If the deal is, we'll drop the Gators from your schedule if you vote for this, LSU would be in. That'd be 6, because they would get, in that scenario, they would keep Ole Miss LSU, which they would like. I would imagine Ole Miss would probably vote for it. I think State would probably be a no, but I could be wrong about that part. South Carolina is an immediate yes. So there's your 8. But let me keep going through. Tennessee, Kentucky would probably be a yes, so they could play Tennessee or Vanderbilt. Now, I think it would be Vanderbilt. It would be a no. I think Mississippi State would probably be a no. I think Arkansas might be a no. I'm not sure I have a great understanding of their view of the world. Um, I think all those schools, that's why I think it's going to happen. The trepidation here is the money. But let me just add this too. If you are Auburn and Georgia, one reason why you'd vote for a 9 is not just to keep this game. This is a money game for the community, for your revenue, in Athens. This is a money game. For Georgia, places like Georgia, they're going to sell out every game anyway. They always do, okay? If you're Tennessee and you lose the Alabama game and you're probably not going to play Florida every year, like who is Tennessee's every year? Because it's not Alabama and it's not Georgia and Florida. That's why they're going to 9.